Have you had enough?
Are you tapping out, Corey?
Are you still going? Are you still ready to watch for 3 more weeks? Whatever this is, what a mess. What a disaster. What an absolutely chaotic state of affairs that the Pittsburgh Steelers are in. And a good Monday afternoon to you all. Today is December 18th, 2023, 3 p.m. Eastern. Chris Halicke, Corey Crisan with you. In 1 week's time will be the official Christmas holiday.
1 week. Everybody ready?
But one Mike Tomlin has made his call to his Rudolph. It is happening.
Christmas
Mason Rudolph, Christmas Eve.
Rudolph's taking off early.
Pending, tentatively, the starting quarterback against the Bengals after the Steelers went west to Indianapolis and did what they did.
Yeah, it was rough. It was really, really rough. And it was actually so rough. I got halfway through the film today and was glad that I focused on my chalk talk, the way that I did, which was kind of spread out over several games, not just looking at the Colts. I really only needed 2 or 3 plays from the Colts game to really explain what I wanted to talk about, which was just severe lack of details. If you haven't read it, it's on DKPittsburghSports.com right now. But yeah, this is a bad football team right now. And it's bad in terms of the fact that, and Mike Tomlin honestly summed it up pretty good, in a way that I would probably sum it up too. They look like a team that's still trying to figure things out in August and September. That's just what they look like. It's not necessarily a bad roster. This is a team whose details are all over the place. Then you go and that in and of itself compounds all of the other issues that you have: an outdated and uninspired playbook, shoddy play calling and game planning. When you already have that stuff, you're already handcuffed. That was the low ceiling that I've been talking about all season long. And then when your details aren't good, when your route running by everybody on the roster except for Deontay Johnson is all over the place, is lazy, is Friday night-ish. I would even say not even Saturday-ish, but Friday night-ish. When your pass protection issues can't be figured out in November and December, this is all minor. All these little details add up, and it's all over the place. And that goes on the coaching staff, and that's why I'm glad that Mike Tomlin is saying, "Screw the staff. This is on me." And I mean, Ryan says it, like, attitude reflects leadership, captain. Like, nice line from Remember the Titans there.
Yep.
But yeah, it's true. And it does start with Mike Tomlin. Like, why does this team still look like they're trying to figure things out in Latrobe? Because that's what it looks like. This is not an NFL caliber team out there right now, because they still their details are all over the place. It's terrible. It's terrible football.
You're putting that very mildly, aren't you? I'm not going to break any news here by saying this.
I almost dropped the cluster F in my story.
I know. I'm not going to break any news by saying this, but it's over. It's over. It's over. They're at the point of no return. They're at. Mason
You're
Rudolph.
Going to Mason Rudolph.
Okay, look.
That's the point of desperation this team's at. They're turning to Mason Rudolph. We know what Mason Rudolph is by now.
Yeah, as we've said for the last 2 weeks now, we know what Mason Rudolph is. He's not the second coming of Peyton Manning. Okay, he's not going to save this team. He's not going to guide this team to the playoffs. It is what it is at this point. Look, okay, let's. I'm not going to get cute over these details. Okay, you're down to Mason Rudolph at quarterback. Najee Harris is not interested in hitting the right hole or hitting the right hole with any kind of force or speed. Jalen Warren still somehow can't see the field. George Pickens isn't interested in blocking and doing the simplest stuff as far as route combinations and route running.
Yeah.
The offensive line couldn't put a block on a Lego stand. Couldn't do it. They're running TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith out there as much as they often can, which they should. But those two guys are ineffective because, like, TJ had 2 sacks. Those guys are largely ineffective because the rest of the defense is full of no names by this point. Okay, we'll talk about DeMonte Kazee's suspension for the rest of the year. Minka Fitzpatrick now has a knee issue in addition to a broken hand and is not playing on Saturday. They're down to Pokemon cards, Amazon workers, practice squad guys, and inside linebacker. This defense is gutted. They're down to at safety. And without exaggerating or using hyperbole here, no Minka, no Keanu Neal, no DeMonte Kazee on Saturday. They are down to Miles Killebrew, Patrick Peterson, Eric Rowe, and an Elijah Riley returning off of IR, in addition to all of the deficiencies at inside linebacker. This is just where they're at, okay?
Yeah.
And I know the defense has largely been because of injuries. Obviously, the KZ and all of that. And where's the comment here? I put a star on it. Chris G says Canada set this team so far back. No, what set this team so far back was continuing to keep Matt Canada employed, which is on Mike Tomlin and Art Rooney. That's what set this team back. And again, you can talk about Ben Roethlisberger's retirement timeline and all of that. Frank says he's afraid Mason Rudolph legs an egg, won't be able to trade everyone for the possible draft pick. Frank, all due respect to you, bud, you're thinking way, way, way above where you should be. You really are. Bring it down a little bit.
Mason Rudolph.
You're not getting anything from Mason Rudolph. You're not getting anything from Mitch Trubisky. You never know what you're going to get out of Kenny Pickett at this stage. At this stage, you're hoping Kenny Pickett is something because he can't stay on the field. He can't stay healthy. And the offensive system that he's in to begin with is awful. So you got to hope the right coordinator comes in. You got to hope that right coordinator gets the best out of him. That's a whole conversation for the offseason. We're getting way ahead of ourselves. Yeah. As of right now, though, as of this moment, okay, it is Mason Rudolph under center on Saturday with the possibility, this is temporary, with the possibility that Kenny Pickett is available. Mike Tomlin left the door open for Kenny Pickett today that he could possibly play on Saturday. Now, we could sit here and debate until the cows come home on whether that matters or not. Short answer is no. It doesn't matter at this stage because they're still in a bad offensive system. The offensive line's uninterested in blocking. Najee's uninterested in running into the right hole. George Pickens doesn't want to block for Jaylen Warren on a potential touchdown. The coaching staff doesn't want to put Warren on the field at appropriate times. So it's all a mess. It's all a disaster. There's no box you can check aside from TJ Watt right now where you could say, wow, this team is something. TJ Watt is the only positive bright spot. Maybe even Landon Roberts are the only positive bright spots on this team that really can be spoken of right now on an individual basis. Oh, and by the way, Cam Hayward's in the concussion protocol as he showed symptoms after the game in the locker room.
Yeah.
So that's where they're at. I mean, that's just where they're at.
Yeah, it's like I said, like problems are all over the place. Yeah, this is not like it's everything. I mean, the Steelers talk about popcorn and everything like this. Like it really is everywhere. It's
burnt popcorn is what it is.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible timing, and there's really not much of a way out of this other than massive change, and that's what has to happen this offseason. I know we're still 3 games away, from the end of the season, but I think for me, I want to start focusing like whenever I look at like what I write about with Chalk Talk and everything like that, I want to start focusing on that already. I want to start focusing on at the end of the season, like what's going to come after the season's over, because this team's not making the playoffs.
No,
I don't care what their chances are. They're not making the playoffs. And Bob, I'm still seeing some comments on Kazee. We're gonna get to Kazee, don't worry.
Yeah, we'll get to DeMonte Kazee and the hit and everything.
But yeah, just it's so bad. It's so bad. I want to focus on what should be coming, but the best way I can say it is that this offensive staff, there's nobody whose job should be safe right now on the offensive side of the ball in terms of the coaching staff.
No,
nobody's job should be safe. Now, I'm not saying that you have to get rid of every single coach, but whenever I watch the film, there is very, very little that I see that makes me want to bring back anything from this offense. Like other than players, because I feel like if you get the right coaches in place, you can get more out of players that they have. You can get more out of Najee Harris. You can get more out of George Pickens. You can get more out of Pat Freiermuth. You can get more out of a lot of guys. And obviously Kenny Pickett being the main one you want to try to get something out of. I feel like with the right coaching staff, especially on the offensive side of the ball, with a good coordinator who has the autonomy to kind of do what he wants, which maybe Mike Tomlin's willing to go there. Like maybe if this is his first losing season, and even if it's not, if it's another 9-8 season with this, but still with this terrible collapse, maybe this is enough to be a wake-up call and be like, listen, we got to start doing things differently.
Oh yeah.
Somebody's got to see it on the south side.
Chris, you're getting way ahead. We're getting way ahead of ourselves by talking about off-season changes and everything. That's all inevitable.
Oh yeah.
It's all inevitable. It's all fair game. It's all predictable at this stage. But we're gonna be talking about those once January 8th rolls around, when the Steelers wrap up in Baltimore on the 7th. Mm-hmm. On the January 8th show is going to be exactly what we're talking about right now. Yeah. But what we can talk about right now is the present, okay? Like the way that this season has unfolded, right? The phantom 7-4 for me, losing 3 in a row now, pardon me. Now it's 7-7. Like the feel of this team, like, yeah, 7-7 is 7-7, but nobody really cares about that. That's the thing. Mm. They could make the playoffs. Nobody cares. It's so unfathomable to me that this team is in the position that it's in. And I get it. Part of it is because of injuries and being gashed in the defense. That's one thing. But this is the residue of the choice in the offseason and the previous offseason of the direction of this offense made by Mike Tomlin, right? And yes, that includes employing Matt Canada. Yes, that includes when Ben Roethlisberger retired. That's all of that included. And then it trickles down into you spend the first-round pick on Najee Harris. You spend an early pick on Pat Freiermuth. You spend a first-round pick on Kenny Pickett and an early-round pick on George Pickens. They tried to build this offense through the draft. They tried to put that recipe forward. But the problem is, and look, we will have a more direct solution to this, I feel, on Saturday if Mason Rudolph starts. You talk about the offensive personnel needing change and nobody's safe, and I agree with you from this standpoint. They have not been able to evaluate talent at all.
No.
At all. That's been able to help them. Nothing has been able to help them this year. This offense this team has won games in spite of the offense. This defense has won 7 out of 7, 6 out of 7, arguably. Yeah. The arguable one there is the Cincinnati game in Cincinnati, that the offense actually went out and won for them.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good performance. They had a game plan. They attacked the Bengals where they were weakest. The players executed the plays for the most part. It was a good game plan. But again, you saw some wrinkles, you saw some differences. I wrote about those differences. But it doesn't take long. And that just goes to show you, it doesn't take long for NFL teams to catch on to what's different.
No,
because it's not something that's that vastly different. It's not a whole new playbook. It's not a whole new system. There are some new wrinkles. Oh, okay, they're doing this differently. Oh, they sequence plays this way. Cardinals figured it out immediately. And then the Patriots, Bill Belichick. You want to talk about a coach who knows how to game plan for certain teams,
who owns Mike Tomlin? Let's just say it.
Yep. I mean that was. I should have seen that coming. I really should have seen that coming. I should have predicted the Patriots to win that game in hindsight, and that's on me for having this blind faith that Mike Tomlin gets his team focused and turns around, which, to be fair, most of the time he does. I mean, when we're playing percentages there, I'm usually playing the higher percentage of what typically happens. Mike Tomlin does typically do a good job of getting his team turned around. But when you have problems that are this like systemic problems like this, it really doesn't matter.
I thought the Steelers should have won that game just by virtue of the Patriots being so terrible and having no personnel. They didn't have Ramondre Stevenson. They dressed 4 wide receivers. One of them was a hurt Juju. The other was Matthew freaking Slater, who has been targeted for a pass since 2016. Like, they should have won that game. Absolutely. And they got destroyed. They should have beat the Cardinals. They got destroyed. They should have beat Indianapolis, arguably. Yeah. Arguably should have beat Indianapolis. Indianapolis had Gardner Minshew at quarterback. Jonathan Taylor was out. Zach Moss got hurt. Michael Pittman, obviously, what happened with him. They were depleted. They were down. And they found ways to walk on the Steelers for 30 unanswered points. And by the way, they had 2 dropped touchdowns at least and 2 more missed field goals. So that could have been way worse than 30-13. All right, let's talk DeMonte Kazee. Now, for those that missed it, DeMonte Kazee has been suspended without pay for the rest of the season because of the hit on Michael Pittman in Saturday's game. You've probably seen the film by now. You've probably seen the hit. It's a questionable hit to a certain extent, but I think part of the NFL citing of why Kazee was suspended for the rest of the year is now this is a multi-time violation with unnecessary roughness and hits like this. Not necessarily that hit was quote-unquote dirty per se, although, of course, Mike Tomlin saying, I don't think he's a dirty player, and then Shane Steichen of the Colts saying, well, that hit could have been either way. You know what I mean? So that's where the Steelers are at now. So now they're down Minka with a back injury. They're down Kazee with the suspension, and Keanu Neal. Nobody knows Keanu Neal's status. We've asked Mike Tomlin 2 weeks in a row. Yep. What's Keanu Neal's status? No update. So Elijah Riley, Eric Rowe, Patrick Peterson, and Miles Killebrew are the options at safety right now for the Steelers. And that's, again, a big part because of Kazee being suspended for the rest of the year.
Yeah. I'm just going to preface what I'm about to say by I am primarily an offensive-minded person in terms of sports. And this kind of transcends just about any sport. I'm an offensive-minded person in hockey. Whenever I play hockey, I'm an offensive-minded person whenever I watch football and when I played football, even though I probably had more fun playing defense because I like to hit people, I still am an offensive-minded person. And typically, I favor what goes on offense over defense.
Trent Thompson, too. Thank you, Mark.
Yes.
Who's hurt, who had stinger.
Yeah, he's not guaranteed just yet for Saturday. We have to see with the injury, how he participates in practice this week.
Right, thank you.
That all being said, what the NFL is doing to DeMonte Kazee and really any other defensive player in these situations is absolutely ridiculous. It's ridiculous. They're painting him to be this dirty player. It's just throwing gas on the fire for fans that think any kind of contact with the head is immediately a dirty play. This is 100% a hospital ball by Gardner Minshew. 100%. Protect your receivers, man. Part of protecting receivers is not just about keeping defensive backs and safeties and linebackers from hitting receivers over the middle. It's also quarterbacks protecting their receivers when they throw to them over the middle. If you're going to throw to them over the middle or throw them passes on over routes, you better be sure you get that on the money. Because even if you hit that throw on the money, he's still going to get a big hit. But at least if you get that throw on the money and he takes a big hit, most of the time, especially with the rules they are now, most of the time that hit is going to come into the chest or midsection area. Most of the time, not again, defensive backs aren't perfect, and you are going to have those hits where guys headhunt every now and then. But again, you're playing percentages. Play percentages. With the way hits are laid out nowadays, defensive backs are more careful than they ever have been. Get your throws. It's not like he was under duress. He moved, he shifted a little bit to his left, and he threw. He didn't have to throw off of his back foot or anything like that. He was able to drive and throw. He just threw him a bad football. And by doing that, instead of hitting him in stride, he had to dive for it. And when he dove for it, DeMonte Kazee didn't have enough time to alter his path and hit him in the head.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a bad call. I think that's really rough on Kazee. It's not the appropriate decision. I don't think that's an appropriate decision to suspend him for the remainder of the season in that manner.
It's ridiculous.
I just don't think.
And I hope that the panel of arbiters that hear his appeal, which includes former linebacker Derek Brooks, that they understand that. They understand, I think about the Mike Mitchell rant whenever he talked about the time that he got fined for the hit on Tyler Eifert. I went back and watched it this morning. Watched that play again this morning. It's the same situation. Tyler Eifert wide open over the middle. I mean, nobody around him, no pressure on Dalton. He just throws it too far. So Eifert then has to dive for it, and Mike Mitchell ends up hitting him in the head because of it. Yeah. And Mike Mitchell's the one who got penalized and fined for it. Yeah. That's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous football. And if you want to hear anybody's opinion on it that you should trust, Tom Brady, the GOAT. Yeah. He's saying the same exact thing that I'm saying. Quarterbacks got to protect their receivers, man. They don't do it anymore. They expect the NFL to bail them out whenever they throw bad footballs over the middle. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's a terrible product right now.
Bob says, from the league that gave you flag football Pro Bowl, I can't wait to see the baking competition. In related news, I've been hooked on Great British Baking Show on Netflix. Oh my goodness. What a fun watch that is. That's such a good, lighthearted watch if you're looking for something. Hodge says, I think the 4-game IR stint for Neal is up against Seattle. Actually, no, it's already up. He's been out for 5 games. Yeah. Blank, did you miss it? He's been out since November 18th. He was placed on IR. So since then have been 5 games. The Browns, the Bengals, the Cardinals, the Patriots, and now the Colts. So he has been out for 5 games and is eligible to turn off of IR, but there's been no word, no sight or sound about Keanu Neal from the South Side. Terry says, not Terry Bradshaw, Terry Breedlove says, ship Mitch and Tomlin off to the Browns. With all due respect, Terry, if Art Rooney called the Browns about doing that, that phone would be hung up faster than you can imagine. The Browns are immediately saying no to that.
Yeah, why would the Browns go away from something? I mean, Kevin Stefanski has a good thing going in Cleveland.
Why they have a great thing going there.
Why would they change that?
By the way, they're missing, 8 starters on offense from the start of the season?
I mean, you talk about a team that's banged up.
Yeah.
I
mean, they're playing Joe Flacco off the couch, and they're winning with him.
Yep.
Joe Flacco off the couch. By the way, I think I saw a stat. It was from CBS Sports Day. I don't have it in front of me. Joe Flacco, 250 yards and 2 touchdowns in 3 games for the Browns.
Yeah.
No Steeler has done that since been retired.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I mean, Matt and a couple of other people are saying they might as well make it flag football. I mean, if that's how they're gonna officiate it, I mean, the only way that Demonte Kazee can avoid hitting him in the head at that point is to completely let up and just let him catch it. Which is taking away defense is what it's doing. That's the only way to do it. That's the problem when it comes to penalizing hits like this, is that it's always put on the defensive player. And some people who are breaking this down saying, like it was a bad hit or is a dirty hit and stuff like that. These are also a lot of people who will break this down while watching in slow motion. Like, man, you can't do that, man. Like, you understand, like, this happened in less than a second. I mean, the time shoot, your brain takes 100 milliseconds just to process an image. Then your brain then has to outsource the job to your body to then be like, oh crap, he's diving instead of running in stride. I've got to change that. You don't have enough time. You just don't. It's impossible. When you watch something in slow motion, it takes 3-4 seconds to develop. Sure, you have enough time to change things. You don't when the guy has to dive at the last second and you're already starting your hitting motion. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I'm scrolling through comments here, and there's so many good ones. You guys are great today.
Start penalizing quarterbacks for these poor throws. The NFL won't do that. The NFL won't do that. But if I'm Michael Pittman Jr., I'm pissed at Gardner Minshew. I'm not pissed at Demonte Kazee.
Yeah.
Throw me a better ball. Don't put me in danger like that.
Mike says, can we get a curling team? Fun fact, they played ultimate frisbee on the field at halftime. It was a Pittsburgh team versus an Indianapolis team. And the Pittsburgh team scored first. They went right down the field and scored. I'm pretty sure they won because the announcer, who was clearly Indianapolis-based, did not say the Indianapolis team won. So there's that. By the way, I did verify that stat. It's from NFL and CBS. Games with 250 pass yards and 2+ pass touchdowns. Joe Flacco in the last 3 weeks has 3. Steelers overall since Big Ben retired, 0. So there you go. So, that's system for you. That's what the system does.
Curling is my second favorite sport to watch during the Winter Olympics.
It is great to watch, isn't it?
I love watching curling in the Winter Olympics.
That is great
so much. It's so great. Like other than hockey, which hopefully NHL players will be back. I'm optimistic about that. With Gary Bettman ultimately deciding that, I'm until pen's put to paper, I'm going to have some pessimism. But if it happens, I will definitely be excited about that. But curling is always my second favorite thing to watch during the Winter Olympics.
Still Cold asks, what do you think is the biggest team need as far as personnel? Put all of the. Here's what you should do. Still Cold. Make a list. Tape it to your nearest dartboard. Close your eyes and throw. That's where you start. I'm serious. That's where you start. You could make a list at this point. What's the biggest one? Address the quarterback in some way, shape, or form. You're going to either roll with Kenny Pickett into next year, and you're going to find the requisite offensive coordinator that can get the best out of him. They're going to sign somebody, a Kirk Cousins or a Baker Mayfield. Oh, if Baker Mayfield was signed by the Steelers, That would be comedy in a way, in a good way. I mean, sign somebody or draft somebody. Jane Daniels, Bo Nix. Again, throw the dart. That's what you do.
I have let my mind start going to what needs to happen in the offseason. And so I'm very, very early in the stages of what I think this team should do. Obviously, it's beyond. It's between two things. It's got to be between two things. You either have to stick with Kenny for a third year and think, okay, let's see what he does under a new offensive coordinator, a new coach, hopefully a new offensive coaching staff, but at least under a new offensive coordinator, let's see what he does. Or, and I'm honestly not opposed to this, especially if it's a guy, if a guy like Clint Kubiak is hired as offensive coordinator, is going to free agency and just paying a lot of money to Kirk Cousins to be your bridge.
Whoever it is.
Well, I say Clint Kubiak just because Kirk Cousins played under Clint Kubiak in Minnesota, so he understands. He knows the system. He understands that, and it would be an easier transition in terms of OC to quarterback relationship.
Here's a morbid thing to think: if the Steelers lose out and go 7-10, what draft pick would they have roundabout?
Middle
10 to 12?
Middle of the pack probably.
Oh, they might have something above that.
13,
I mean, right now,
14. Something
hold on,
like that.
Let's see. What's the draft order right now?
Yeah, pull it up right now. I mean, like I'm curious. I would think 7-10 is not a awful record. I would say like in the 12 to 14 range.
Right now, according to Tankathon, at 7-7, the Steelers have the 16th pick in the draft. If they lose out and go 7-10,
I'm still saying.
I mean, they could be within that 10 to. They could be within that 10 to 12 range at max. So with that said, this is a deep quarterback class. This is a really deep quarterback class. Caleb Williams, Drake May, Bo Nix. Mm-hmm. I mean, get the list going. Michael Penix, McCarthy. That's 5 right off the top of my head. This is a really deep quarterback class. If they lose out.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
If they lose out or they're in that range to get somebody, you can't rule anything out. And in fact, like, here's the catch-22 of it. Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, Mitch Trubisky. Can you trust this staff to evaluate quarterbacks? No. So it depends on when the coordinator's hired. If they hire the coordinator before the draft, right? If they hire
you got to do it in January.
I agree. If they hire the coordinator before the draft, which they should, then will that coordinator step in and say, "Get me Bo Nix, get me Jay Daniels, get me Michael Penix, get me McCarthy"? That's not out of the realm of possibility. You can't rule anything out when it comes to these quarterbacks.
Nope.
So, look, again, we're looking way ahead into the future because there's still 3 games to play. But quite frankly, when you're a bad football team and you're losing games the way you're losing them and there's no good feeling around them, bad football teams start talking draft in week 16. This is what they do. So that's why we are where we are. And,
and that's why
feeling good right now.
No, that's why I'm saying like okay, if you throw that situation out there, like that hypothetical situation, if the Steelers hire Clint Kubiak as the coordinator and then they sign Kirk Cousins in free agency, then go into the draft with the possibility of then drafting your quarterback of the future right there. Sign Kirk Cousins to a 3-year deal and let this guy that you draft be what Aaron Rodgers was behind Brett Favre in Green Bay, or what Jordan Love was behind Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay.
They don't even have to do that.
I'm just saying, let that guy play behind a guy who knows how to play in the end. I mean, Kirk Cousins gets a bad rap, dude. He's a good quarterback.
Oh, I think he is too.
Yeah, he's not a game changer. He's not a guy who can throw the team. He doesn't have that clutch factor in terms of being like, I can put the team on my back at any moment and win you the football game. But in terms of understanding how to break down coverages and how to execute concepts and everything like that, he knows how to do it. He's had success doing it in this league.
Matt says they can't tie Cousins no cap space.
Figure out cap space.
They could figure it out, but Matt
Matt
makes a point here. If they want to go that route, they're going to have to clear some money out. Somehow.
You would have to.
And get under the cap and find a way to sign somebody. Here's what I could argue. Here's what I would argue. Roll into next season. Hire the next offensive coordinator. And then what I would do is get a cheaper backup, a cheaper veteran. You got Kenny Pickett, a cheaper veteran, and then draft a guy. And then whether that guy is a first-round pick, second-round pick, third-round pick, that's where we go from. Because that draft pick and where that quarterback's taken will dictate Kenny Pickett's future.
Yeah.
And if that new offensive coordinator comes in and says, I want Michael Penix, I want Bo Nix, I want J.J. McCarthy, then you're going to think if they spend a first-round pick on a quarterback with the new coordinator, that's it for Kenny. That's curtains.
No,
that's curtains.
It is.
At that point, he becomes a backup on a rookie contract and it's cheap. So they have what I'm saying is they have options. I wouldn't mind that either. What I'm saying is they have options. We're a little ahead of ourselves in doing that. And yes, Steven brings up another point. Do they need a new defensive coordinator too? That's in the air as well.
I think so. With the way Mike Tomlin spoke today, I mean, he was openly critical about the lack of adjustments in game. That seems to be a problem with the staff on both sides of the ball. I do give the defense a bit more of a pass when it comes to lack of anything, just because they are decimated by injury. But other teams in this league are also decimated by injury, and they're still figuring out ways to.
The Browns have Joe Flacco playing quarterback, and they're winning. They're 3-0 with them.
Yep. And so I do think I also think I'm completely fine with a complete overhaul here. Like new defensive coordinator. I like some of the coaches though on that side of the ball. I really do. I think Grady Brown's a good coach. I think what the linebackers coach they just hired from
Aaron
Seattle.
Curry.
Thank you, Aaron Curry.
He's a good coach too.
Yeah,
I agree.
I like Aaron Curry. I like Dunbar. They got some guys over there that know how to coach players and know. I've heard these guys speak to players, and I've heard the feedback from these guys, and I've had conversations with some of these coaches off the record. I think there's more there. I just think they need a better guy up top who knows how to coordinate it all. I don't think Terry Lawson's the answer there.
Yeah. Still Cold asked, does any OC want this job? I argue this is a really desirable job to have.
Pittsburgh Steelers, man.
It's a really desirable job to have. And it's not just because it's the mystique of the Steelers. It's because there's actually stuff to work with.
Yes.
Believe it or not.
You have talent on that roster.
Right. And I think that, and I know my point earlier, it's like they don't have the players to do it right now. But that's the players within this system. If they get a new coordinator in here, a new system, a new feel, a new way of doing things, maybe that reinvigorates some of this. And they spent all that early draft capital on skill positions and weapons. Find a way to maximize it. That's what the offensive coordinator's job is to do. And it's clear that an evaluation of talent from the front office and Mike Tomlin, combined with keeping Matt Canada employed, would absolutely decimated any chance of this offense succeeding this year. So could that all change with a new coordinator? I think so, but it's got to take a lot of work by this point. It's got to take a lot of work. There's a few comments about Mason Cole, but I'll just bring this one up from Kia. Definitely need a new center. I mean, that's fair. Need a lot of new pieces on the offensive line. I think James Daniels, the pride of Warren, Ohio, my guy, had a PFF grade of 0 pass blocking. 0.
The entire offensive line had a bad game against this Colts front. The entire offensive line. Broderick Jones was not good either. The entire offensive line was bad on Saturday. I mean, in pass protection, they were bad. Mm-hmm. And again, like other issues with details, on the offense, just make that even worse when you don't have pass protection. Like I think about one of the ones where Trubisky was sacked on 3rd and 5. There was still 3 seconds between the snap and the time that he began to get wrapped up for a sack. 3 seconds is enough time to get the ball out. Yeah. If you have the right stuff out there for a quarterback, okay, my first read's not there, second read gone. Okay, check down.
Yep.
No check down. Jalen Warren's still not out there. He's going out for the check down, but he's not out there yet. Why isn't he out there yet? Check downs need to be out there by 3. If a check down is not available 3 seconds after the snap, something went wrong.
Yeah. I agree.
I mean, something is seriously wrong. Unless you're in max protection, which the Steelers were not. They were not in max protection. There is a serious that again, you go to details. But yes, overall offensive line was bad on Saturday. Overall, from left to right, Dan Moore, Sayamalu, Cole, Daniels, Jones, they were all bad. It was bad game for all 5 guys.
It's September football in December, as Mike Tomlin said. He couldn't have been more correct about that. And now here they are, 7-7, but the feel is absolutely gone. There's no. This isn't from within. It's just the complete vibe around this team is so down in the dumps right now. And that's us talking about it. That's you feeling it at home, I'm sure. This is, this is kind of residue of a lot of other stuff that has gone on. And
Yeah.
there's a long way to go. There's a long off season ahead. And we're 3 weeks away from it as it appears right now. It's really hard to sit here and say the Steelers have any kind of chance of recovering and making the postseason. It's damn near impossible to do that by this stage. And look, Mason Rudolph is likely going to start on Saturday. And I say likely because Mike Tomlin left that door cracked for Kenny Pickett, at least
foggy.
right now.
It's foggy.
Right. So
I think if Kenny plays, it's not a high percentage right now. I'll put it that way. It's not.
Yeah. So if it's Mason Rudolph on Saturday, look, Mason Rudolph's going to talk tomorrow as the starting quarterback does on the Wednesdays, even though tomorrow's a Tuesday, everything's up ahead.
I would love to be in that scrum.
I don't have to wait until tomorrow to say pretty much what I feel like I want to write already, and that's like much of what I talked about already. But this is, if he plays well Saturday, is that the coaching staff at fault for not being able to judge, diagnose, and assess quarterbacks correctly? Because now we can sit here and say Mason played well. Should he have been the guy all along? If Mason doesn't play well Saturday, we could sit here and say the Steelers are 0 for 3 on quarterbacks. This whole coaching staff doesn't know what they're doing when it comes to the position. Therefore, wholesale changes need to come, which is already evident anyway. So that's what's at stake here on Saturday, one way or another. And one way or another, if Mason plays well or not, the coaching staff is going to be looked at, and I'm going to do it certainly, for the way they evaluate the position, because this is what they're down to. If the Browns can take Joe Flacco off the couch and win with them, if the Bengals can take Jake Browning and win with him, if Tommy Cutlets over in New York can make that sad franchise feel good in any kind of way, why can't Mitch or Mason do it? It's system, it's coaching, it's development, it's front office, it's all of that stuff from the top. Yeah. And this is where the Steelers are. All right, short and week. Game is Saturday. Tomorrow's the quarterback day. We'll hear from Mason Rudolph on the south side. Wednesday's coordinator day. That'll be a riot. Thursday is the shortened abridged day, as it usually is on a Friday.
Yeah.
Friday will be the team day off. Saturday's game day. On Festivus of all days, I'm sure we're going to air a lot of grievances out after that, Chris. Do you have a quick final thought?
I'm so looking forward to seeing Rudolph lead the sleigh on Christmas Eve.
That's why our show title is like this.
Yeah. It's just it's amazing, man. Like it's just funny that we're at this point now.
It's sad we're at this point.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's insane we're at this point is what it is.
And see, that's the thing is that when you have the fan base clamoring for Mason Rudolph, I think that just goes to show you how bad things are right now. Because and it's nothing against Mason Rudolph. It's just we know what you get with Mason Rudolph. We've seen him at his very best be average. At his very best, be average. There's nothing that's going to help put this team over the top with him at quarterback. There's just not. He could go out there and he could play the game of his life against the Bengals, and it could be a Christmas miracle, and it'd be great. And I hope he does. I mean, he's a nice guy, and he's taken a lot of crap in stride. But airing of grievances, as Mark says, it's just
who's going to have the feats of strength on Saturday? That's the big question. Might write my story might just be Festivus themed, like the whole thing. Airing grievances, feats of strength.
What you need to do, your gamer or whatever you write on Saturday needs to be in poem form. You just need to write it in this very long, 'twas the night before Christmas.
I'll write a haiku. No. That deserves a haiku. 575 done. That's it.
That's what my final thought is going way above my pay grade and giving an editorial demand of being like, Corey, you have to write it 'twas the night before Christmas.
Yeah, run that by gamer. DK. See how that goes. I'll pitch it to him. He'll look at me and roll his eyes probably, but
shot down quicker than anything.
I'll just write it in haiku, 575. Steelers is 2 syllables, so I'm essentially down to 375 in a way. I don't really have a final thought other than it's the Christmas season. I wish I could sit here and say positive things, but I can't. Like, I want to be happy. I want to be jolly and merry and bright. I want all of your days to be merry and bright, but it's not what this team is right now.
I'm jolly. Honestly, the only thing that's really made me upset was the suspension of Kazee. Everything else is just it's just football. I mean, it doesn't impact my life that much.
It does it to an extent for me because I'm here. But
well, you are there. I listen. Like when you are on a beat and you are covering a team day to day, and the product you're having to watch is god awful. Yeah, it can. That's why honestly, for everybody on staff that I feel most badly for, it's Alex, because he's there every single day.
You feel it. I mean, you do feel
terrible
it.
Baseball team.
You do feel it. Like, I'm not. I love you too, Mark. Thank you. Look, I'm not a fan of the team. I didn't grow up a fan of the team. I'm not a fan of anything.
Yeah.
But like, when you're around the players and you get to know some of these guys on a personal level to an extent, you do associate and you do empathize and sympathize, and you're on the highs with them. When you're covering a winning team, you know this, Chris, when you're covering a winning team, it's fun. Okay. Yeah. Case in point, when I covered Pitt in the NCAA tournament last year, that was a blast. We're in the NCAA freaking tournament. Okay.
Yep.
It was awesome. But when they're in the dumps like this, you do feel it, and you can pick up and sense things.
Yep.
And you can like share that with them in a way. So we're on the ride together. We're doing as best as we can. The times are tough right now on the south side, but the train rolls on. The moving train, so to speak, rolls on. Rudolph, with his nose so bright, will he guide the Steelers Saturday night? DK and Ramon.
To keep that sleigh above 500.
DK and Ramon will be on in 20 minutes. That should be a riot. I'll go 4:05 bell today. Chris and I will be back tomorrow. Chris will be here at least at the start of the show. I'll be low quality, running to the computer for 3 o'clock, 10 after 3, whatever it is. And Pitt won 2 games in the NCAA tournament last year. If you want to count the play-in, and then they beat Iowa State before Sean Miller. Absolutely.
Game,
No, it counts. It counts. It counts as an NCAA tournament win on the official. And then Sean Miller, Pittsburgh's finest, decided, oh, my team's way better than this. And then Sule Boom and Jack Nungy and all those guys. Adam Kunkel just shot the lights out on him. But anyway, let's go. We're on to Tuesday. DK and Ramon in 20 minutes. He's Chris and I'm Corey. Remember to like the show, subscribe, share it, tell a friend to tell a friend. Goes a long way. We're available here, of course, live on YouTube and on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify in audio form. He's Chris Halicke. I'm Corey Crisan. This has been the Southside Beat. We are on to Tuesday. Cheers, everybody. Have a good day.